Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we're going to be testing out a couple of really cool 5.56 offerings from Fort Scott Munitions. We've got their Brass Hog, which is a copper 55 grain load, and we've got their Brass Hog, which is a brass solid that weighs 62 grains. So let's see what these things can do. We're going to shoot a variety of different targets, have some fun, and hopefully by the end of the video we'll get an idea of what this stuff's capable of. Let's do it. All right, we're going to conduct a baseline ballistic shell block test with the 55 grain copper spun Fort Scott here. We've got 4 layers of clothing there. We've got denim, fleece, flannel, and a t-shirt, okay? And we've got 2 10% FBI blocks. So without further questioning, let's just make it happen. See what happens. I expect this to be pretty devastating. All right, here we go. Well, that first block took a bit of a beating. We'll see what happened. All right, guys, I wish my blocks were a little bit cleaner. These are reused blocks that are probably on their way out, clear ballistics. I've melted these back down, reused them, so hopefully you can see what's going on. What happened is it went through the 4 layers, through the first block, dipped down low as it began to yaw and tumble forward, and then it made it up under this block and went about 2 or 3 inches into the other block. So we got about 19 and 3/4 inches penetration there, okay, out of that 55 grain. Here's the projectile. It literally just wound up sort of pooping its way into the block there, okay? And again, it retained all of its weight, all of its shape and form, because it is a solid. That's what it's designed to do. On the next shot, I'm gonna try the 62 this time. And I'm gonna try to shoot maybe just a little bit higher, because what we saw is it's actually got a really good looking permanent cavity in there, and it began to dip down. So as a bullet yaws, as it's tumbling, it's gonna tend to wanna nosedive down. And I would imagine that's probably what happened, is it nosedived down, and it's gonna sort of find its way down and then tumble forward and push forward. So pretty interesting result. Let's try the 62 grain load. See if I can get it a little higher and get it to dip in and make it into the second block a little better. All right, same test, but this time we're going to use the 62 grain Brass Hog, which is our brass spun projectile, all right, from Fort Scott. Same test. We're going to shoot a little higher, see if we can get that round to dip down and make it into the second block. I think we might have a good capture here. Let's have a look. All right, guys, color me a little bit surprised. That's a little bit of an unpredictable result. I went a little bit higher on the block thinking that the projectile was gonna go down. It ended up veering up that time. So that tells you that that yawing characteristic may not necessarily always make the projectile go in a downward angle. It could go up or to the side, so that's interesting. Now, it went out the top of the block. We didn't capture the projectile. But I think it's safe to assume that we probably would have penetrated roughly the same, if not maybe a little bit more gel than the first shot. I hate that these tests are almost a little bit inconclusive because we didn't get a perfect secondary gel block entry on both projectiles. But it's safe to say that what we do have access to, what we can see, is the permanent cavity. And the permanent cavity on the 62 grain is a little more pronounced. The actual wound cavity itself, other than just the main chamber of the permanent cavity, is more defined, and I would say that little bit of extra weight and that little bit slower velocity is going to make for probably a little bit nastier of a wound channel. Comparing the two, the 62 grain wound channel is definitely a little bit larger and is a little bit more elongated. So there's definitely a little bit more energy being transferred out of that heavier projectile. I know it's only, what, a 7 grain weight difference, but that's a big difference, especially if the speeds on the projectiles are very similar to each other, and you're going to get a lot more energy pill to pill versus the heavier weight moving the same speed. So let's move on to some other stuff. That's cool, but I think we should get into some other neat things as well. Let's do it. Okay, with the 5.56, we're going to start out with a standard drywall penetration test. This is the 55 grain load first, which is the copper solid. Then we'll move on to the brass. 2 sheets of drywall, insulation in the middle, and then we got a watermelon backer to see all the carnage in the rear here. So let's see what happens. All right, first on the 55 grain. I don't think I'm gonna be able to hit it. I don't know, it's kind of far away. What do y'all think? Here we go. Whoa, okay. Well, I think we got the watermelons. Let's have a look. Okay, rifle cartridges do some really fun stuff when you shoot at random objects with them. We saw that 55 grain zipped right through the drywall, the insulation, went into the first watermelon, and then began to yaw and tumble because the way that it caught this second watermelon here, it kind of kissed the edge and then worked its way out. So that means that projectile was yawing, and it actually looks like it did hit oblong in the second watermelon. So that means that this projectile is doing what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to yaw, it's supposed to tumble, and that's a really interesting result. We're gonna go ahead and try the 62 grain. Maybe with the extra weight and the slightly slower velocity, maybe we'll see a little bit more penetration without the tumbling effect. But remember, the round is supposed to tumble. So the wall upset it, the first watermelon upset it, and then it did its job going on through. So pretty interesting. Let's try the 62s, see how they do. Okay, drywall test again, this time with the 62 grain brass projectile. This is the one I really want to see what's going on because, you know, if I'm going to take something like this out to hunt coyotes or whatever I'm going to do with it, I think the 62 would probably be my flavor. Let's see. Well, sent watermelon all over the cameras. That's pretty interesting. We'll see what happened. So again, just like the 55s demonstrated, the bullet definitely starts to tumble as it goes through a medium like that. We got through the drywall segments, through the insulation. The first watermelon completely devastated. Getting into number 2, just like I predicted, that 62 seemed to carry through a little bit more energy getting through into watermelon number 2. I mean, it did yaw. I mean, well, there's not really much of a way to tell what the hole looks like on the entry side on watermelon number 2 with the 62 grain, but it definitely got through there. So let's move on to some other stuff. It's an interesting comparison to test the 55 against the 62. Let's check out a few other things while we're at it. Okay, we're gonna move on to a pine baffle penetration test. We've got 8 pine baffles and a soda backer for fun, just in case it makes it all the way through. Now with a tumble upon impact design or with anything that's going to have a tendency to yaw, it can create some odd instances for penetration through hard objects. So let's give it a try. First the 55 and then we'll test the 66. 55 grain copper, same gun, same everything. All right, here we go. Okay. Looks like it made it through one of the sodas. Let's have a look. All right, so that's a pretty interesting result with the 55 grain. I thought it was gonna get straight line penetration. It tumbled, guys. Crazy. Okay, so baffle number 1, straight line, straight line, straight line. Okay, here getting into baffle number 5, it began to tumble. You can clearly see a just really distinct sideways tumbled bullet going into baffle number 6, 7, and 8, and the exit holes on the tumbled projectile is crazy looking compared to just the straight line penetration. Okay, it made it out of baffle number 8 into the top of the soda, and it veered off, and downrange I saw it hitting the dirt right over here. So the projectile did its job. It yawed, it tumbled, and it's a pretty interesting result. You still got some good penetration. Interesting. Let's try the 62 grain, see what happens. All right, now we're gonna test the 62 grain brass, see if it penetrates any deeper before it yaws. I think the benchmark would be to beat 5 panels before it starts to yaw, so let's see what it does with the 62 grain load. Brass, here we go. Put that round exactly where I want it on the board, by the way. Not hard to do at this distance. Let's have a look. All right, so we got a lot of a different result out of that than I expected out of the 62. It penetrated straight line through all 8 of the boards, went into the soda, and then punched right through the soda. So absolutely no yawing out of the 62 grain bullet. So it's really interesting to see the difference between those rounds. I mean, the 55 really started to offer some tumbling effect, getting into like the last 3 baffle stacks, starting on the fourth before last, but really in the last 3 tumbling, but then straight line penetration out of the 62. So if you were wanting to hunt some rather large hogs, the 62 grain would be a really good bet if you're wanting to use 5.56 for hogs. I've shot hogs with M855 ball ammunition before. Never had a problem with it penetrating both shoulders, but that round right there would do really well on a 62 grain. 55 grain would be a lot better, I would say, for light skin, small game, varmints such as coyotes, foxes, things like that. Really interesting stuff. Let's move on to the next thing. All right, we're gonna launch a 55 grain copper T.U.I. 5.56 here into some milk jugs, just for fun here. Everyone's favorite colloid. Let's do it. All right. Didn't penetrate as many as I thought it would. Let's have a look. Milk probably wasn't a good idea. I'm starting to see the ramifications of my decision. It's quite immediate here. We got through 4 milk jugs. Let's see if the 62 grain will punch through more. We've seen that maybe the heavier bullet moving a little slower, maybe it'll penetrate more jugs. Let's just have a look and see. Pretty visceral expansion on the first couple of jugs there, and it began to tumble and worked its way into the lower area of the jugs and split the last 2. You can see it just kind of veered down and then went out the bottom of the other jug, which means that it definitely yawed like it was supposed to. Let's try the 62 grain loading as well. Okay guys, now we're gonna do the 62 grain brass, okay, Fort Scott. And earlier you noticed I pulled my charging handle back. I couldn't get my bolt to move. I realized that this is the rifle that I broke the bolt stop on the other day. Don't tell anybody, I won't. All right, here we go. 62 grain brass. Okay, so my prediction was that maybe it would penetrate deeper. Let's see if we got into 5 jugs instead of 4. Okay, so it looks like possibly we might have got into the 5th jug. Here's jug number 4. It's got a relatively sedate looking hole through there. Ugh. Shame about the milk, but all right. And this jug has got a hole in the bottom of it, and it looks like it didn't go through the table. So let's see, maybe, just maybe, we might have that projectile in this jug. I'm not gonna get my hopes up. It's okay. So it skimmed the 5th jug, no pun intended. I think it's safe to say that the performance of the 2 projectiles is pretty much verbatim, very similar. The 62 grain is definitely going to offer a little bit more penetrating capabilities, I believe, especially on, let's just say, game. You're not going to be shooting milk jugs, obviously, but the 55 would probably be a good varmint round. We'll do a little bit more barrier testing with gel blocks, I think, in a future video. That's going to take me a little bit more time to set up. We'll do that in a future video. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. We hope you enjoyed it. We always love to test ammunition here on the channel. Thank you guys so much who support us on Patreon. If you purchase man cans, if you purchase shirts and other merchandise over on the website, guys, all those funds go right back into supporting the channel. Thank you so much for believing in what we do and supporting us. Thanks for watching today. We'll see you next time.